early 2022, a horrifying crime in Sydney, Australia, stunned the nation. 19-year-old medical student Arnima Hayat was found dead in a bathtub filled with hydrochloric acid. The person responsible was her husband, Miraj Zafar, the very man who had once vowed to love and protect her. The brutality of the act sparked urgent national conversations about domestic violence, coercive control, and the alarming signs that are too often missed in abusive relationships. Arna's murder stood in heartbreaking contrast to the life she had been building. Bright, compassionate, and driven, she dreamed of becoming a doctor to help others. Her academic achievements and tireless work at local health clinics reflected a deep sense of purpose and humanity far beyond her years. Raised in a supportive and loving home by her parents, Mitu and Mohammed Hayat, Arna was the embodiment of their values: resilience, kindness, and service to others. Her future had been one of healing and promise, yet it was cut short by someone who manipulated and controlled her behind closed doors. Her death left a deep scar, not only on her family and friends, but on an entire community that had admired her strength and aspirations. However, despite the bright trajectory that her academic and personal life had mapped out, a shadow began to form over her existence when she entered a relationship with Miraj Zafar. Miraj, a 20-year-old man who initially seemed to embody the qualities of charm and genuine affection, quickly became a significant part of her life. Their connection was instantaneous and intense, leading them to marry in a private Islamic ceremony in October 2021, a day that, at first glance, heralded the start of a promising new chapter. Yet beneath the surface of this union lay complexities and undertones that would soon unravel the fabric of her hopeful future. What began as a relationship full of potential and shared dreams tragically morphed into a relentless nightmare marked by the insidious onset of domestic abuse. In the span of a few short months, the love and promise that once defined her world were overwhelmed by fear, isolation, and control, ultimately setting the stage for the irreversible devastation that would follow. According to her close friends, Arnima had been experiencing domestic violence for months. Arnima endured relentless abuse at the hands of Miraj Zafar. What had initially seemed like a loving relationship soon turned into a suffocating prison of control and fear. She confided in those closest to her, whispering truths too painful to say out loud. Zafar was not the man he had pretended to be. Instead, he was possessive, manipulative, and terrifyingly violent. Every aspect of her life became subject to his oppressive scrutiny. He dictated where she could go, whom she could speak to, and how she should behave. The man who had once promised love and protection had become the source of her greatest torment. Arnima contemplated leaving him on multiple occasions. She envisioned a future where she could escape his grasp and reclaim the life she had worked so hard to build. But fear paralyzed her. Like so many victims of domestic abuse, she felt trapped in an endless cycle of hope and despair. Perhaps he would change. Perhaps if she complied, the violence would stop. Perhaps if she stayed quiet, she could keep herself safe. These thoughts haunted her, convincing her to remain silent, to endure, to survive. Tragically, despite the overwhelming suffering she endured, she never reported the abuse to the authorities. As time passed, Zafar's grip on her life tightened. His possessiveness morphed into something more sinister, more calculated. He isolated her from her friends and family, severing the support systems that might have given her the courage to break free. He monitored her movements obsessively, questioning her every action, suffocating her under the weight of his paranoia. His temper was unpredictable, a storm that could erupt without warning. Each outburst was more terrifying than the last, a violent reminder of the power he held over her. Despite the clear warning signs, Arnima suffered in silence. She had no way of knowing just how much danger she was truly in. By the time the full extent of Zafar's brutality was revealed, it was already too late. On January 30, 2022, emergency responders rushed to an apartment in North Parramatta, Sydney, after receiving a distress call that led to a horrifying discovery. Upon arrival, authorities were met with a gruesome and deeply disturbing crime scene. The lifeless body of 19-year-old Arnima Hayat, submerged in a bathtub filled with hydrochloric acid. The air inside the apartment was heavy with the sharp, corrosive scent of chemicals, and the scene painted a grim picture of the brutality she had suffered in her final moments. Investigators immediately began piecing together the details surrounding the heinous crime. It didn't take long for authorities to determine that Miraj Zafar, Arnima's husband, had already fled the scene before first responders arrived. The apartment bore no signs of forced entry, indicating that she had likely let him in willingly, or that he had been living there. As forensic experts examined the evidence, a chilling revelation emerged. Zafar had purchased a substantial quantity of hydrochloric acid prior to the attack, strongly suggesting that the crime was premeditated rather than an impulsive act of violence. He had deliberately planned to use the acid in an effort to dissolve her remains, destroy evidence, and conceal the true nature of his crime. The horrifying nature of the crime sparked immediate action from law enforcement, who launched a nationwide manhunt for Zafar. Given the calculated brutality of his actions, police feared he had gone into hiding, possibly attempting to flee the country. The urgency of the case led to heightened media coverage, and Zafar's name and image were quickly circulated across news outlets, urging the public to report any sightings. However, less than 24 hours later, Miraj Zafar turned himself in at a Western Sydney police station. Whether it was the overwhelming pressure of the manhunt, fear of being captured, or legal counsel advising him to surrender remains unclear. Regardless, his decision to turn himself in did not lessen the severity of his actions. Upon his arrest, Zafar was charged with the brutal murder of Arnima Hayat. Arnima's parents were left devastated by the horrific murder of their beloved daughter. In court, her father, Muhammad Hayat, broke down as he spoke about the pain of losing her in such a brutal manner. The family struggled to comprehend how someone who claimed to love Arnima could commit such an inhumane act. Her parents later called for stronger domestic violence laws in Australia, emphasizing the need for early intervention and more support for victims. They urged other women in abusive relationships to seek help before it's too late. Arnima's case served as a wake-up call to many. She was a bright young woman with a promising future, yet she fell victim to the hands of an abuser. Her story resonated deeply with the public, highlighting the silent suffering of many domestic violence victims. Zafar initially pleaded not guilty and attempted to delay legal proceedings, prolonging the family's agony. However, after nearly 3 years of intense court battles, he finally admitted to the crime and pleaded guilty to murder in December 2024. Prosecutors presented overwhelming evidence that proved the murder was premeditated. His purchase of acid, his history of controlling behavior, and his failed attempt to flee all pointed to a deliberate and calculated act. On December 19, 2024, the court sentenced Zafar to 21 years and 6 months in prison. His non-parole period was set at 16 years, meaning the earliest he can be released is in 2038. During the sentencing, the judge condemned his actions as cruel, calculated, and deeply disturbing, highlighting the level of malice involved in the crime. Despite the sentencing, the pain for Arnima's parents remains immeasurable. They expressed that no punishment could ever bring their beloved daughter back. The tragic case serves as a painful reminder of the devastating consequences of domestic violence and coercive control. Arnima's family hopes her story will serve as a beacon, raising awareness, sparking change, and preventing similar tragedies from claiming more lives. Her death ignited a national conversation about the urgent need for comprehensive domestic violence prevention across Australia. Alarming statistics reveal that 1 in 4 women experience abuse in their lifetime, a harsh reality that underscores the depth of this crisis. Many, like Arnima, suffer in silence, caught in webs of fear, manipulation, and dependency that make escape feel impossible. Her murder became a grim symbol of the dangers hiding behind closed doors, where warning signs often go unnoticed until it's too late. As public awareness of Arnima's story grew, so did calls for systemic change. Lawmakers, advocates, and communities rallied for stronger protections, more accessible resources, and early intervention programs. Yet beyond policies and reforms, her story now stands as a call to action for friends, neighbors, and society at large to speak up, reach out, and never dismiss the quiet signs of suffering. Arnima's legacy, though born from tragedy, may yet become a turning point in the fight to protect the vulnerable and save lives.